Altair Monarch Data Prep Studio allows you to export tables and summaries to analytic tools such as Microsoft Excel. This workspace has sales data that has been prepped, transformed, and analyzed, ready for export. Summaries can be exported to Microsoft Excel and Access, CSV, JSON, and XML, SAS Transport File Format version 5, Tableau TDE, and Click. Let's export our summaries to an Excel spreadsheet. You can export to a local file system, Amazon S3, or Azure Data Lake Storage, and you can choose from these Excel formats. By default, the export location, table name, and export file name follow the name of the summary we chose. The export location and table name may change depending on how we configure the export. The filters and sorts created for the workspace may be applied to exports and are available here. If we choose all filters and automatic naming by tables, the table names will be based on the filters instead of the summary name. If we choose naming by files, the export location becomes a folder where the files will be, and the table name is the default we saw earlier. If we set a specific filter, the export location is set back to the file. We get a similar behavior when choosing all summaries, naming by tables, and naming by files. If this is set to a specific summary, the export location and table name are set to the defaults again. You can apply a measure if the chosen summary has a column key. In this workspace, the summary having a column key is sales by manufacturer, with the country set as the column key. Let's set this to the summary with the column key to see the measure options. When this is set to all measures, the export location and table name will depend on whether we are naming by tables, in which case we have this file, and the tables will be based on measure names, or if we are naming by files, in which case we have a folder to contain the export files. As with the previous settings, if we select a specific measure, the export location is set to the file. If we check the option for a split, a warning appears saying that the All Filters option is unavailable because we chose all summaries and indicated a split. Notice that the export location is a folder now because with a split, each distinct value of the key field will correspond to its own file. For instance, in this summary, we would have separate files for Canadian sales, direct US sales, and so on. We can also specify the drill level, whether or not to include column headers, as well as what we want to happen when a file or table exists. There are options to overwrite, append, or skip. There are a few more options available in the Advanced tab. We can add a digital signature to establish the authenticity of our export. We can embed the page setup header in the worksheet if one was defined for the summary, include an outline to enable drilling, include the formula expressions for the subtotals, and include conditional formats as long as the conditions do not go beyond this limit. Now let's export all the summaries defined for this table. We will be exporting to this Excel file and have the sheet names of the file follow the names of the summaries. Open the file once the export is finished. Here we see that each summary has its own sheet and the sheet names follow the names of the summaries. We can drill through the summary levels using the outline. The export also includes the formula expressions for the subtotals and the conditional formatting for the net value field. Now let's export the table to this same Excel file. As with the summary export, we can also set the export file system and Excel format. This time, Data Prep Studio tells us that the default file exists, as this is the file we exported our summaries to earlier. Let's rename the table and the export as well. This time, when the file exists, we want to append to the file and overwrite the table if it exists. We can also set the page layout for the export here. Let's add a header including the date and timestamp, and a footer to show the page number. These will appear when we print the file. Under the advanced options, we can also add a digital signature. This time for table exports, we can add auto-filter drop-down lists to the column labels. We can also include a pivot table sheet. Let's select a few pivot fields and see how that looks later. Lastly, there are a few more options for the style and grant totals. When we open the spreadsheet, we have the tabs for the summaries we exported earlier, and now another tab for the table export. This has the autofilters added to each of our column labels. A pivot table has been added to the spreadsheet as well, with the manufacturer and sales organization as the pivot fields. Lastly, if we go to the print preview, we see the header and footer that were set for the table export.